Hello everybody, CA has finally released their video about the Dark Elves campaign. So I didn't get a chance to post my video about the world map and analyzing all the features, however I'm still going to post it. I'm just not going to focus in on all the different starting positions, things like that. Instead I want to go over some potential places where I think the Skaven might be, some potential mods, as well as things about the lore, and ways I think it'll affect gameplay, such as Albion, the importance of that island. But anyway, let's get started into this video. I appreciate the first frame that they start us off on is a scene in Nagaron, because this already paints a huge picture of what we're going to see. I enjoy the rogue army there, right next to a Dark Elf army in the background. Heck, even that black unicorn you see right there flying around is a good touch for me. Anyway, way off in the distance you can see it starts to clear up, so I'm guessing, I think that's definitely Nagaron still, but way farther back there, there's two armies, probably Lizardmen armies, that's the Isthmus, and right here in front you get a Dark Elf spot. And then out there in the bay you see a sunken treasure ship, a Dark Elf ship next to it, but we'll go into that later on. Right off the bat, Darren says he's on turn 70 and still hasn't discovered the whole map. By the way, I think this is a beautiful map, definitely an upgrade from the last Warhammer map, which was already good as it is. But anyway, turn 70 and he still says he's in the early game. Ordinarily, I'd finish a campaign around turn 160 on, say, the Empire, the Dwarves. Chaos would take me a little bit longer, but still. If this is only turn 70 and they're still pretty early on this map, and this is how much he's discovered, either he's not exploring a whole lot, or there's going to be a lot for us to discover. And there's over 200 different settlements for us to settle here. A lot more than previous Warhammer 1, so that paints us a good picture. We then get to see more about diplomacy here. The yellow is your own faction, blue is ally, red is enemy, pretty straightforward like the last one. But there's a lot of different settlements here, like I mentioned earlier, so they're probably going to implement something like making Confederation a bit easier, like what they did with Norska, just so that we can quickly conquer these continents and not have to do the whole unite, then expand outside our comfort zone. Something else to note in this video, up in the top right corner, is the storm that's going on over here. Now, what these will do is apparently, if you cross through a storm, you can take anything from attrition, where you start losing troops, to even you could lose an entire fleet if you're not careful. But I think the way these are going to work is, Darren mentioned that Malekith had actually had to cross through some of these stormy areas, and as you can see, this is completely blocking the coast. So what I'm guessing is these will actually change probably every turn, sort of like the Winds of Magic. So they'll be there for a turn or two, or maybe 10 even, and then they'll change every now and then, or they'll increase and decrease in intensity. But that's probably a way you can navigate around them. There are also new resources here, such as these scrolls here, which you can use for the ritual, but we'll go into those in a little bit. The final thing I want to bring up about this map are the islands. For me, I like that they're not attached to the mainland, as in their own settlements. So you can conquer an island and then go to the mainland settlement, rather than just conquer the mainland settlement and it includes the island. The reason why I like that is because it actually offers better protection for some of these scrolls here that are located kind of on the coast, but not fully there. That way an enemy might either have to conquer that island first, or try to make their way around you and you can just easily intercept them. And it makes it a lot easier to defend some of these ritual points. And lastly, I'm betting that's a Skaven settlement right there, not just ruins. In the previous video CA posted about the whole campaign map, they did show a Skaven army starting up there by Malekith's position, so if that's not a standalone army and that's a full settlement, that's probably the settlement right there. Anyway, let's go on.
Borders were relatively well secured with surrounding allies, I decided to send Malekith with a large invasion force south to Ulthuan to form a sort of territorial beachhead and slow down the High Elves who were ahead in the race for control of the Vortex. I chose to land here, at Vol's Anvil.
Here's where we finally get introduced to ritual currency. So this is what we're going to be competing for throughout the entire map. Now, I like how he mentions that the High Elves are actually in the lead in the beginning, so it gives him a bit of competition, but this also goes back to what CA has been telling us about how the AI can actually win and beat us in the campaign map. So there's multiple ways to win, and there's multiple ways to lose, essentially. But normally, you have to gain ritual points apparently through completing quests. And this isn't just for the Dark Elves, this is for everybody, and everybody does have their own unique currencies. And the only way to gain these ritual currencies, he says, though, is by building this building. Or at least for the turn-based ritual currency. And as you can see, you can upgrade it as well. Building 1 will give you 10 points, building 2 will give you maybe 20, 30, 50, who knows. But back to that second currency, each race is going to have their own unique secondary currency. High Elves is going to be political points. For the Skaven, it's going to be Warpstone. Dark Elves, it's going to be slaves, as they mentioned in this video. The Lizardmen, I can't remember what it is, but you can use those secondary currencies to add a bit more flavor to each of your factions. So let's continue with the video now.
Ritual. Their capital of Lothern, as well as 2 currently hidden settlements, are channeling energy towards the vortex as they complete their ritual over the course of 10 turns. During this time, we can disrupt them by taking out any of these settlements. We can also see that the Lizardmen have sent an intervention force against Lothern, but it doesn't look like it'll be enough to slow them down. The High Elves are defending their capital well, so we'll be looking to find a lesser defended settlement to capture and interrupt their ritual. So that'll be our objective for this Let's Play.
Finally, we get introduced to interception armies here. Now, before we go into the Black Arks and everything else here, interception armies, we're told, are armies that can be spawned at a moment's notice. You don't control them. They're sort of like, I think, either a vassal state army that you can direct but you can't really control, or they're just an allied army. But what we're told that they can do is spawn at a ram's notice. There's different tiers. They cost different amounts of money. Probably the different resources can improve them. But they can only be summoned when somebody else is enacting a ritual. This adds a completely new level to the gameplay, because if you're enacting a ritual, any other faction can spawn a interception army right next to you, and you've got to quickly take out that army, along with the rogue armies that are already appearing everywhere, and on top of that, enemies that are already on your border. That can either be really fun for a lot of players, or a lot more difficult. For me, that's going to be a lot more fun. I mean, it's nice being able to fortify Ulthuan, which I plan to do, but knowing that it's not going to be an impenetrable fortress like I thought, that just adds a new level to the gameplay. I'm going to go ahead and skip over to Malekith here. So they added traits that actually grow and improve over time. They also added a couple new familiars. High Elf Pet Slave. Oh gosh. Okay. And let's take a look at Malekith's skill tree here. He's got over 100 different improvements you can make on him here. Now, I'll let you go through some of these right now, but there's different fields. He's, of course, improves his soldiers. He's got a magic area, but he's also got a couple unique little chains right here that you'll have to unlock over time. And on the subject of lore, I like how they added a Cold One Chariot to Malekith's mount options. Now, he's got a Cold One that he can pick from, then the Chariot, then Seraphon, but a little bit about the lore. Right before he had Seraphon, he had a previous Black Dragon that died, and so when he became Malekith the Witch King, he actually rode upon a chariot that was pulled by a couple of Cold Ones. Just so that he could be the only pimp on the field with a chariot like this, he had all the chariots in Nagaron destroyed. Idiot move, if you ask me, considering how destructive chariots are, but when you got an ego to feed, what else can you do? Now on to Black Arks. So these are different from just having an army on the ocean. This is like having a settlement out in the ocean. It's got 10 spaces to pick from, building slots. A bit spacious if you ask me, but they're probably going to monetize it in some way, so that you've got to dedicate production in a certain way. But they can also help you with bombardments, apparently, and if you set them in the right stance, these ships can also help you replenish. That's going to be a nice little feature, but the only way to get these is through the rites that you have to perform using your slave currency. Moving back to Nagaroth, we get to see that rogue army from the beginning of the video. As stated before, missions are one of the ways, probably the primary way, to earn ritual currency, but it looks like other rewards come with them too. One thing that demonstrates that these rogue armies aren't immediate enemies. You actually have to declare war on them first, just like any other faction, which would make sense because once they conquer a settlement, they do actually form a faction of their own. The only other notable thing for Dark Elf gameplay that we would notice is that post-battles not only give us loot and experience, but now there's a third post-battle option that we can pick from down here that gives us more slaves. So the way you earn slaves is by winning battles or winning battles over cities. So that actually gives you 2 economies that you now need to watch over, 3 if you want to count the ritual magic. Another cool little addition they've added is the use of names of power. This is something that only the Dark Elves have, but this allows you to pick between 1 of 3 names for each general, each title providing its unique benefits. For example, this first one right here, the martial name of power, this one improves the general's own combat abilities, while the second one, the revered name of power, will improve the general's army, and then the third one, the aristocratic name of power, this one will improve the whichever province that lord is in. And even after you choose the type of title you want for your general, you then get to choose the actual name and decide which benefits you want. In this case, he decides to go for an increase in public order and income from all the settlements. Now, Dark Elves live in a Machiavellian society where there's one undisputed leader and several nobles that are all competing for power, each one preventing the other from gaining too much power at the same time. So assassinations, coups, rebellions, all this sort of treachery is very common in Dark Elf government. The only one that can really be the firm grasp of power is the main leader Malekith in this case. With that in mind, it kind of makes me laugh a little bit how Ycey decided to word this little event pop-up window. Oh, look at that. With the untimely and not at all suspicious death of a rival lord, a large swath of land and its sadly disloyal inhabitants have fallen under your control. Anyway, back to the topic. Now, I know that every general, or most every general, has their own public order bonus, economic bonus, skill tree to improve their soldiers, their skills, their fighting ability, things like that. The Dark Elves follow that same suit, but with these names of power here, you can actually designate this general, in a way, to be extra focused on, say, combat prowess, or improving their soldiers, or maybe a public order person. You could even have multiple generals in different provinces. What I would probably do is, you could probably have a general in each province to be like the public order general, and then there's a couple that kind of roam around to perhaps fight rogue armies. Maybe another general you have can be maxed out in their ability to train troops. That way you can just hire the troops of this general and then disperse them out to other generals that aren't as experienced. That way you have professional battalions in every army. The possibilities are numerous, although it adds its own new flavor to the Dark Elves nonetheless. Now, given CA's zealous efforts to follow very closely to the lore, you can bet that public order for the Dark Elves is going to be very hard to manage, so it'll be nice having these extra features to help out. Same goes for captains as well. Here we've got this K-Knight Assassin. He's also got a scavenge ability. They said that apparently gives you more post-battle loot. It also helps you increase the slave economy, and then the usual skills that agents typically have. Now let's continue with the video.
Cyrus Barbstorm and her army is on the way to sack Blacklight Tower, belonging to the Forge Band. And it looks like there's an encounter at sea on the way, so let's explore it. Ah, we found some sunken booty. This will give us growth and extra income across all of our regions for a short while. Definitely a good omen for Cyrus's journey to come, no doubt.
Keeping with the New World theme, CA has added treasure to the game. Now, as he already explained here, you can just find these randomly throughout the map, although just like the storms you see on seas, I think that these might just appear at random. Now, CA has also announced that not all these treasures are good, and some can actually be harmful, so it feels almost like you have to approach it like Halloween candy. You just crack it open and hope you're not getting any razor blades in there. In traditional video game fashion, though, I'd say that the treasures that are closest to your beginning settlements are probably going to be the safest, and then as you get farther away, the treasures will both be more valuable, or potential for them to be more destructive will be higher. But CA might just break this trend and have them all be random.
Battle at last!
And on that note, it's time to end the turn.
Take note that Clan Moors and Clan Pestilence are both up here, but none of the other Skaven factions are represented. If we remember in Warhammer 1, certain Beastmen tribes and Greenskin factions would only appear on the map at random. But until these tribes were discovered, it was almost as if they were non-existent in the game. CA has noted that amidst the many ruins that are in the New World, some of these actually have Skaven clans hidden in them. So if you were to go to try to settle a set of ruins, there's a chance that, yeah, you'll just settle it, no problem. But there's also a chance that you might actually stumble upon a Skaven clan and have to fight them for the land. This is going to create some paranoia for players like me because I like settling ruins. But on the plus side, it can also give us chances to earn more experience, loot, and of course ritual currency.
Now, new to the Total War franchise is the ability to decide what you want to see during the end turn phase. Currently we're watching a Tyrannok hero perform an action against an ally of mine, something that's not particularly of cause for concern for me, so we can choose to speed this up, ignore it, change the camera view and more, and we can do this for all factions or groups of factions, like all of our allies or all of our enemies.
In case anybody was wondering how long we'd have to wait per turn, that is a pretty good way to answer the question. So we're just going to skip ahead then into the video.
So, our Sacrifice of Cain rite is ready to be used again, and just in perfect time. Rites are a new feature in Total War Warhammer 2 which can be performed by each race.
Here's what we can use that secondary currency for. As stated by Darren, all the factions are going to have this ability to spend their secondary currency on various rites unique to their faction. Let's look at the 4 options the Dark Elves have. The first rite, the Sacrifice to Authority, provides public order in all provinces and introduces a new mechanic called Loyalty. This is a new mechanic introduced to Warhammer 2, but it's not a unique mechanic to the Dark Elves. The Skaven in fact have this because their lords also suffer from disloyalty. The way this is represented is through a bar that shows how loyal they are to your faction. However, because the Dark Elves are more cunning in their plots, they don't actually have the same disloyalty meter, but the mechanic still works the same. If a general's loyalty bar gets too low, then they could go rogue. The way to counter this is through earning victories for that general, giving them better troops, certain buildings, technology, and of course, performing this rite. Good for keeping your generals loyal and your public order intact. The second one, the Sacrifice to Hecate, seems to be more magic focused. It gives you an increase of plus 50% for your sorcerers, including plus 200 experience every turn. And the Winds of Magic Power Reserve go to up 30, your chance of success on any hero action is increased by 40%, and it lasts for 10 turns, but has a 30-turn cooldown afterward. I can't imagine a specific time when you'd need to use this, but maybe it's just random throughout the game, and it appears Darren used this earlier, so it probably has something to do with the rituals when you'd want to use this. The third is the Sacrifice to Cain. Clearly this is a battle-focused rite, as it gives you a casualty capture rate of 25% and a casualty replenishment rate of 20%. So post-battle captures mean you get more slaves per battle, and then income from slaves is increased by 15%. You also get income, or the post-battle income is also raised by 50% after battles, but unfortunately because of all the sacrifices going on, the slave decline rate goes down by about 50%. So you'll need to really make sure that your slaves are at an all-time high before you initiate this. Lastly, it gives them the Dark Conduit ability, which I'm not entirely sure what it does, but it sounds like it improves their stats a bit, so we'll see what happens later on. And finally, the last one, the Sacrifice to Mathlan. This gives you the Black Ark, the moving settlement across the ocean that you can recruit troops from, replenish, basically do everything that Darren did earlier. The only other thing I can point out here is that you can only recruit one of these every 25 turns at minimum. So those are each of the Dark Elf rites. They each cost a certain number of slaves, have a cooldown time, and some of them last for X number of turns. Now let's go on to see the slave management tool they've added in. As you win battles and capture settlements, you'll earn yourself slaves, but then you actually have to find a province to put them in. Depending on how you use them, this could help or damage both your economy and your public order. If you put an influx of slaves into a province that already has low public order, it could make it worse. Whereas, on the flip side, if a province has a very high public order, adding more slaves can actually boost the economy and the public order. This menu shows us the total amount of slaves a province can have, the amount that are currently there, the percent that die each turn, the current public order in that province, and the extra income that's generated from the influx of slaves. Off to the side are 3 buttons that allow you to either accept slaves into this province, deny them, or increase the current number coming into that province by 3 times the usual amount. My recommendation? Avoid sending slaves to places with low public order, and send them to places with higher public order. Now once again, let's skip further into the video to see what else is going on.
Let's head back down to Malekith. I'll take you along the path he originally took. Now it's covered with storms, treacherous whirlpools, and roaming armies, so you can see that
Gold!
he had quite the journey getting here, and this isn't even halfway down the map. Now let's disembark his army and scout ahead to see what the High Elves have in store for us. Okay, it looks like they've actually got a very well defended settlement here, no doubt protecting it while they perform their ritual. We've got another turn before we can actually reach it, and we're still gaining replenishment from the Black Ark, so Malekith's army is healing. We might as well upgrade our buildings on the Ark so we can recruit even better units later down the line. Now a small concern I have is that the Lizardmen will fail at Lothern, and they'll send their other army towards me from the rear, pinning me in this forest. So, to ensure that the High Elves are kept busy, we'll call upon an intervention force. Now intervention forces can only be called upon when an enemy ritual is in progress. This is like a mercenary style AI army that will do the best to hinder and prevent the enemy's ritual from completing. We can get 3 tiers of intervention, so we'll get the highest tier army. Excellent, so we can see the army is a full stack made up of a decent selection of troops and some costly high tier units too. Hopefully this will distract the High Elves long enough for us to take Cairn Thal. So with that, let's end the turn.
That is how intervention armies work. There are 3 tiers, each tier costing more than the previous tier, and also granting a tougher army. But it also looks like you cannot control this army though. Yet they still go for whichever ritual site is closest to them. After interfering with the ritual for the High Elves, he then reveals that he's now ready to enact a ritual of his own. The ritual then goes over 3 different cities that he needs to defend. The ritual will then take a certain number of turns to complete, and he'll need to defend those 3 cities during that time in order to complete the ritual. Once we start the ritual, we get this interesting cutscene where the advisor from the other previous factions instructs us on what's going to happen next.
The ritual is underway, my lord. Even working together, it will take your greatest adept some time to complete. Such is the ritual's power that the great vortex itself distorts under its pull. Be wary, though, for while the vortex is weakened, the forces of chaos will slip into this world. Ready your defenses, for they will doubtless be drawn to the ritual's power.
Okay, so there's chaos armies spawning all over the place, so we'd better call our armies back and defend our own towns. Back to Ulthuan, let's push our Black Ark up to the coastline, ensuring that Malekith has our bombardment support, and finally attack Cairn Thel, stopping the enemy ritual once and for all. I hate to leave it on a cliffhanger, but that'll be it for this campaign Let's Play. Be sure to join us tomorrow as we continue where we left off and fight the battle for Cairn Thel.
And that's where the video ends. So I'll be sure to post more videos about the latest content, any videos that CA releases after this, including some Let's Plays with Throg the Troll King, Wulfric the Wanderer, and when Warhammer 2 comes out, I'll try to cover at least one leader from all 4 factions. So in the next video until then will probably be an overview of the battle we're about to see next. Can't wait to see how it goes. Wait a minute, didn't you get eaten by a Hydra? Have a nice day, everyone.